Story 1, Chapter A. The 7 Magical Adventures of Jenai. The Quest for the Ancient Wisdom Map. The Brotherhood of Pao. Presented and narrated by Jim Jara, the storyteller, representing the guiding force of fantasy and magic, residing in Fairy Tale Palace Planet. Chapter A. The Sacred Council. It was probably the most difficult time of the planet Earth since time began. Man had created a modern civilization, reached a high level of technology and science, but in the process had lost the basics of life, and was in the final chapter of destroying the planet and himself. The economy was down, and wars, terrorism, and natural disasters the news of the day. Everybody was screaming change, but it seems to be more a fashion word because in the eyes of Matthias, that change needed to come from each individual. Matthias Summer, a teacher in criminology, scientist and researcher, had understood that all what the planet and what man was facing was merely a reflection of each man himself. The external world was like looking in the mirror of oneself, so to speak. Matthias had been on a quest for 27 years to find the sacred archives, a secret place with the magical University of Life, that would hold the collection of lost wisdom scrolls, an ancient map, and other ancient wisdom that would help him and anybody else who was seeking change to make that change happen. Seemingly encouraged by Morai Amoro, the messenger of love, he did everything possible to complete this mission. It was said that these treasures contained information regarding the guiding force of the Creator, universe and nature, constantly trying to guide each individual in a practical way in the adventure of life. During the ages of time when man had lost his direct communication connection with Kandu the Creator, and the connection with the soul within and nature, these treasures, being the basics of life science, had been lost. All of the information together would be like an ancient manual that could help turn things around, according to Matthias. He described it that mankind had forgotten that they were souls, and now wandering without a map or manual in a foreign land, without knowing how to live in harmony with himself, others, and nature. The sacred archives with its treasures would hold that key to harmonious, vital, and aware living in a practical format, in every aspect of daily living, and on every level. And by tuning into this wisdom, one's entire perspective on life or a particular aspect of life would change instantly. These treasures had been the foundation of various cultures in the past, but the information and the guiding forces had been misused. They had been turned into gods that had been feared, worshipped, and used for selfish power. With the downfall of the ancient empires, the treasures also disappeared, but were now ready to be discovered because it was the time that mankind and the planet needed all the help they possibly could get. Matthias had figured out that even though one may be on a spiritual path, go to church, believe in God, meditate and understand the higher principles of living, that everybody was still struggling. Where was the practical application of all that wisdom? Some individuals might have an advisor, a healthcare practitioner, a nutritionist, personal trainer, or even a lifestyle coach, but nobody had access to them all day long. It was for this reason that Maria Morrow had called these guiding forces the Sacred Council, and once discovered, the individual would have all the guidance one would need. Jenai, 14 years of age, being the oldest daughter of Matthäus Summer, was sitting at one lonely Sunday late evening when everybody was asleep in his old squeaking rocking chair, thinking back about her father and remembering that together they had been drawing a map on a self-made paper scroll, which she had kept in a secret place. The map had many headings, but the spaces underneath depicting the 7 main colors of the rainbow were blank. She had hoped that little by little her father would have come home from his quest and that they slowly would have filled in the blanks. She had lived in the world of scrolls, maps and symbols, and could still see them all over in his study room. Her mind was full of magical stories, which her father used to give her insight of many things that helped her in her life. She remembered her magical life, traveling the world and living in many places, being homeschooled and having an artistic mother, Ashani, who transformed each home into a magical dwelling. Again, endless stories flashed through her mind, but she was not clear if it all had been real or just a dream. The only thing she remembered that life had been great, but which changed all in one morning 2 years ago. Jenai, dressed in her nightgown, pulled the rocking chair a little back when the siren in the big city in the distance went off. Electric storms and acid rain were approaching, and it would not be an easy night in the city. Luckily, it was quiet in her village, which was standing on huge round plateaus built on stilts. The plateaus were erected on different heights, each holding at least 100 round villas, covered with lots of greens and gardens with flowers, plants and herbs, all planted in earth boxes. The plateaus were constructed from a special material that let the rays of the sun and water go through. Under, in the semi-shade of the plateaus were endless vegetable gardens that needed this in order to things to grow. Their village from a distance looked real futuristic. It was an experimental eco-community situated at a big lake with lots of bamboo, which had assisted with its nature-balancing properties to clean the polluted lake. It was a village that was kept as much pollution-free. People were very conscious, ate well, and did most of their moving around by walking or biking in the fun-looking mini-car bikes, which could hold up to 4 people. On the outskirts, one could take the modern speed train to one of the bigger cities. However, they were unable to keep the community pollution-free, as the rest of the planet was getting more polluted and sicker. A magical world. Jenai looked at her mini-computer, which was set in her bracelet, switched it on, and while the big hologramic screen projected itself in front of her in mid-air, she decided to view some pictures. Tears started to run down from her big brown eyes into her light brown face when she looked at a picture of her father and her mother, she being pregnant with her. She remembered them talking about the universal and spiritual consciousness of children, which was, according to them, one of the major solutions for the future. They had decided to regain their inner child, and with the upcoming of their first child, this became their dream. Instead of trying to pull Jenai into the often heavy, unpleasant and serious adult world, they had seen Jenai as their teacher, to enter the innocent and magical world of their inner child again, and claiming their universal and spiritual inheritance. That same week, they had gone to a fair and listened to magical and soul-touching stories told by a man called Jimjara, dressed in beautiful Indian clothes and wearing a turban. He told the spectators that he came from Fairy Tale Planet, a magical realm where old stories were born. His booth was painted in the most magical ways, and on the table a miniature replica of his planet was displayed. Most people believed that this was all part of the storytelling show, but Matthias and Ashani felt that there was more to this and this man and his stories. After the incredible storytelling show, they went up to the man who, to their surprise, had greeted them with their names. He had said, "Matthias and Ashani, I have been waiting for you because you have decided to live life through different eyes, and I had said to myself, these people may need a hand in their new adventure." He had continued saying, "How we look at life and perceive it is a projection from our own mind. Young children who are not conditioned yet still perceive life from a fantasy, magic and mystical point of view. Children are wise. They have saint-like qualities such as unconditional love and have an abundance of energy." Wherever we believe in and what we repeat will become the reality we live in. We all can live magically in this strange world man has created, but we do not have to lose ourselves in it. Actually, we all can live life from different realities and all at the same time. I really live in Fairy Tale Planet, and let me present you with a password, which is the key to enter this world and visit me anytime you want. It had been nice to get that confirmation, so magically confirming that they had chosen the right path. According to her parents, he had taken a magical looking pen and wrote in mid-air the word Jim Jarabin, which immediately disappeared. Paint magical doors in your home and visit me after using the password. Here is some paint, and let me see if you can do it. In no time Ashani, who was an excellent artist, had painted the door on one of the walls of the fair booth. "Farewell, my new friends, Jim Jarabin." Jim Jara had spoken, opened the door, stepped into it, stepped onto a magical carpet and flew away. After the door closed itself, the door disappeared, and then the entire fair booth as well. Jenai heard a familiar noise coming from far away. She looked into the distance and saw a huge dark cloud coming in her direction. The sound detectors on the roofs of the houses in the village had detected it as well. The automatic metallic box screens on all the houses went down, and Jenai looked at the porch she was sitting on, getting completely protected. Some minutes later, as the noise became very intense, the air was full of flying bugs. The dark cloud being bugs passing through, and it was something familiar. They were on their way to a particular city or area and did some hours there to clean up a lot of garbage. Many people, unfortunately, could not see them as the helpers of nature, and many attempts had been made to kill them. After some minutes, they disappeared and the screens went up again. Jenai's thoughts went back to her parents, trying to keep her in the world of fantasy and magic. In their eyes, most children were too young pulled out of that world with the belief that it was the only way to function in the real and serious world. Children were not given the choice to live in that special world. Her parents, however, had had a different belief, which was working for them, and tried to hand this gift over to their child. She grew up with the most incredible stories, and some years later, she remembered her parents taking her through one of the magical doors. But had it all just been a dream? At the same time, however, she remembered so many details. She remembered entering and viewing Fairy Tale Planet, which had endless palaces covering an entire planet. The magical and Arabian-looking palace had different sections, such as Future World, the World of Little Folks, Celebration World, Home Search World, and each revealing different stories. It all had felt real, colorful, and alive. It was on that planet, and in the palace, where Jim Jarrah, the master storyteller, had his home, and where all the stories were coming from. She remembered visiting the palace wing of the elves and the little folks. She remembered walking there and visiting and talking with these special and magical inhabitants. I became their size, she was thinking, and I lived amongst them and learned from their stories, the stories which Jim Jarrah brought in the entire universe. The story of the Elfin Flame and the Laugh Lake flashed before her eyes, and for a moment she felt being there. Endless times she remembered going through the door and Jim Jarrah always waiting for her and bringing her to the right ring in the palace to experience a story, helping her to answer questions or helping her to go through things she was fighting with. She remembered visiting the palace wing of the Whispering Forest, the wing of the underground labyrinth of caves, and the wing of talking animals. So many stories came up in her mind, and then again she started questioning herself. Did it all really happen? "Serena," spoke Jenai out loud. "Has it all been real, what happened in my life, or was it just a dream?" At the moment she spoke the name Serena, a small elf flying from Jenai's pouch came flying from Jenai's pouch and took her place hovering in mid-air next to her right ear. Looking up closer, it was a robot elf. She had the same face features as Jenai, but tiny pointy ears, long golden hair reaching her legs, a ballerina pink-colored dress, and the only thing one could see that she was a robot elf was the round and spinning eyes. "You are wondering if your life has been real or a dream," answered the elf. "It is hard to figure out all these things in my head," stated Jenai, after which Serena responded, "It is not easy for you to figure out all these things in your head." "Thank you, Serena," spoke Jenai, as she knew she would not get any answers from her. Serena made a couple of spins around her head, flew back in her pouch, and deactivated herself. Jenai sighed, turned her head while looking at a picture with her father and her wearing a dance outfit and remembering dancing since an early age. She had been fortunate to find the most artistic dance teachers wherever they stayed. She had learned dances from all over the world and remembered small stage performances with many other children. Her mom had helped creating these stages with the dance instructors, and for her it had been wonderful living in that special world. She remembered having seen the most creative circuses with acrobats around the world and also living in that world, her mom making costumes and she learning acrobats. She could see herself standing with 2 feet on one hand of her father holding her high in the air. She had enjoyed learning about judo and aikido. I had no fear and did the most incredible things, she thought. Sarina, why do I have so much fear in my life? In a split second, there was Sarina hovering next to her right ear again and answering, Poor, poor soul, you are so afraid of so many things. I really feel for you. Jenai immediately knew that Sarina was in the wrong program and spoke, Thank you, Sarina. Sarina's eyes were spinning crazy, didn't know where she had to go, took a too fast turn with speed, ran straight into the wall and flew back in the pouch again. I don't need anybody to pity me. Not at this moment, Jenai was thinking. She looked up to the sky, and there was a moment when clouds shifted away and she saw the stars. Jenai felt an enormous energy which was present in the universe, took a deep breath, and exhaled slowly. For one moment she felt peaceful, but then looking at a picture about 2 years prior, a depression did set in. She had been so fit and clean, and now looking at herself that image had changed into something unhealthy, lazy and unclean. She remembered 2 years ago going completely off track, feeling overwhelmed and unfulfilled and filling herself up with unhealthy stuff and not taking care of herself. Sarina, I am off the health track and abusing my body, although I know better. While hovering in mid-air, Sarina reflected. Sarina's eyes were calm, so she was in the correct program. You are angry at yourself because you know better. Jenai continued speaking. I am stupid and will change this forever. You think you are stupid and you think that forcing yourself will bring the solution for the rest of your life. You think that you can keep this commitment up for the rest of your life. Jenai, hearing the reflection of her own feelings and words, started to ease up and said, I will do my very best to live more healthy again. Thank you, Sarina. The elf disappeared again. Jenai started to cry again and released some inner tension. Sarina, who came flying out of her pouch, but had too much speed, didn't know where she was going, and flew several times against objects on the porch and finally took her place hovering on her right ear. I am weak, and I should not be crying. I should be strong and not show this emotion. Sarina responded, You feel weak and think that crying is a sign of weakness. Hearing her own words, she knew it was nonsense what she was saying, eased up and thanked Sarina for reflecting again. She closed her eyes for a minute, smiled, but instantly the sadness came back and a mind full of questions. It was about another story her father had shared with her some years ago. She moved a little bit backwards on the porch as it started to rain slightly, but knew it would soon be over, as it was just a small cloud passing. Moriah Morrow and the Sacred Wisdom Map. Thinking again about her father while looking at other pictures, she remembered how this quest of her father had all started. At least, that was the story she remembered her father had told her. Seemingly on a desert trip, where her father and other members of the research team got caught in the middle of a war between two tribes, Matthäus had found shelter in a cave all by himself. He had told her that he had fallen asleep, and when he woke up a curtain of smoke had appeared. It seemed to be a door, but he had hesitated to enter. At that moment outside a sandstorm had started, and the sand was even blowing inside, and he had had no other choice than to step through the curtain of smoke in order to find more shelter. After he had gone through, he had entered a labyrinth of lights lit by 1,000 tiny shining crystals, ending at a snake-like marble staircase. He had gone up 7 floors, each floor having had its own color, resembling the rainbow, starting at red and ending at violet, and the violet color on the top floor. Each floor was like the inside of churches, mosques, and old temples. In the violet-colored temple he had faced another curtain of smoke. This time he went through. He heard sounds and was sucked into an energy vortex where everything he passed or passed him had to do with the number 5. It had gone so fast that he could not remember everything, because in a split second he had entered another temple or another dimension, which he had described as oval-shaped, entirely made out of white crystal reflecting images. Tiny streams had been running everywhere, coming from a little waterfall, seemingly the altar of the temple. Also streams had been running up the walls and ceiling. It was an amazing place. He had walked up to the small altar with the waterfall, and to his amazement there had been no river or water basin feeding the waterfall. The water had come from nowhere, and after falling in a small pond, the water formed 3 streams, and the 2 outward streams splitting themselves again in 2, making 5 in total, and feeding the entire temple. There were incredibly heavenly sounds coming from these streams, and when he touched the water, it changed into the brightest light he had ever seen, and to his amazement, his hands and fingers didn't become wet. After he had sat down, Moriah Morrow, the messenger of love, had come out of nowhere and explained him that the temple was a replica of creation, the planet Earth, but at the same time a replica of the human body and even 1 cell of the human body. The stream coming from the waterfall, coming from nowhere, was the river of life, and was the source of life coming from Kandu, the creator of all, the one who had received so many names, but who was actually beyond form and name. This stream of light and sound was keeping everything alive in the entire universe. It was at that place where he had met for the first time Moriah Morrow, the messenger of love, who had encouraged Matthäus to go on the quest for the sacred archives. This was another question she was thinking about in her mind. Was her entire life based on stories? And what was real? And what was a dream? She went back to the story of her father. Morai, as he had described him, had a tanned complexion, oriental-shaped eyes, a handsome face with very thin curly golden-colored hair, and a long beard, and dressed in a blue and rich embroidered robe. He had loving yellow-brown topaz-colored eyes, and explained to her father the details of the entire temple, the river of life, the Trinity in all, the magical number 5, and the sacred number 7. It was too long ago, and she couldn't remember the meaning of it all. It was after this meeting that her father started to meditate and became involved in his quest. He believed that by discovering these treasures, a new foundation could be established, especially for children, because they were the gateway and guide for the new generation. In his eyes, this would be a possible solution to change things around, as it was info for individuals to change themselves first in order to make a real change to the conditions mankind and Mother Earth was in. With all the information he was gathering, the strong belief in the existence of the power of love coming from Kandu, the creator of all, and the messenger of love, he himself had been changing into a better human being, and being able to see the things that happened in his life as magical guidance. Jenai had created the same interest as her father and shared especially the goal of solving the mystery of recreating the sacred wisdom map. Now, she was sitting here and doubting if the story had been real or not, if her interest had become like her father's interest because she loved her father so much and blindly believed him. Sarina, have I been fooling myself all these years by believing my father? Sarina came flying out of Jenai's pouch, but instead of taking her place at Jenai's right ear, she hovered in front of Jenai's eyes that turned cross. You are definitely a fool who has no ideas of yourself. You are dumb and stupid to believe all this nonsense. Jenai rolling her eyes and thinking this is exactly how the father of her friend would have spoken when his son would have come to ask him the same question. Jenai, realizing that Sarina was in the wrong program, thanked her, but immediately called her name and repeated the question. Sarina, flying out of the pouch, had her arms and legs intertwined. You need to get your life together, study, and get a serious job. Jenai, knowing that Sarina was still in the wrong program, was thinking, just forget about it. However, Sarina didn't stop talking. This is ridiculous to waste your life in this matter. Grow up! Thank you, Sarina, thank you. For the thank you was the only way to stop the elf. With upset gestures, Sarina flew back in the pouch. She remembered the times she and her mother had been concerned with her father as he worked so hard, and even though with a drive of excitement in finding these treasures and at the same time making time for his family, children, and taking care of his health. At times he really looked exhausted, but at the same time there was always a smile showing from inside him, to let them know not to get worried about his condition of being exhausted. A painful message. Then, at age 12, she remembered that the day arrived of deep pain, which started with a telephone call, receiving the message that her father would not come home anymore. Somewhere in the world on his travels he had fallen asleep in his hotel room and had died a natural death. The pain was softened when they received a letter which he had written before he had closed his eyes. He apologized that it had to happen this way, but stated that he had met Maria Morrow again, who had told him that this was the way and time he had to leave his physical body behind. He stated that he was at peace and knew that everything would be okay and that they would meet again. He also mentioned that he had sent 2 packages for Jenai, of which one arrived, but unfortunately the second one never did. The package which arrived had a beautiful present for Jenai. It was a hand-sized robot elf, and her father had named her Sarina. She was a prototype of a toy line he had been working on and made her in Jenai's image. Her task was to help the owner in two ways. The first help was that Sarina could be sent ahead in order to gather information with her inside video camera to report anything and even danger ahead. The second task was that she could be of help as a reflective communicator, so children and also adults had someone to talk to when in need. Reflective communication meant, as he explained, a skillful or wise person trained to listen and to reflect, being a mirror for the one speaking. Reflective communication was not to agree, disagree, and show pity, and especially not to give advice. It was to let the speaker listen to her or his own words and the emotions hidden behind the words. It was also to learn the skill of reflective communication and let the one with questions solve his or her own dilemma. As it was a prototype, it was not completed, and in regards reflective communication, she would also answer in the non-reflective way, such as agreeing, disagreeing, pitying, or even telling you what to do. He had wanted to wait till the robot elf would be completed, but he had run out of time as he had to pass on. Jenai didn't care if it was perfect or not, but Sarina became her companion. It had a battery with a long life, and when spoken to as Sarina, it would activate itself and take its place close to one's right ear and hovering in mid-air until it was spoken to with the words, "Thank you, Sarina." The task to help Jenai and being able to fly ahead, looking and reporting any danger, never seemed to work, and so Sarina was just there for reflective communication. They had been confused. Matthias again talking about Maria Morrow, the messenger of love who lived in their hearts and dreams and thoughts, but which they had never seen. They thought that Matthias must have gone in a dream state before he left his body. They tried to trace the second package through various channels, but were unsuccessful. It was shortly after that day that her mother got confronted with back pains, and although the doctors could not find anything, the pain stayed, and at times she was unable to walk or even do the simplest tasks. They also moved shortly after his death, and Jenai took care of the house and the twins, who had been 2 years of age when their father passed on. The new house was not painted and decorated as their previous homes, as Ashani didn't have the strength nor the creative force left in her to do so. Jenai losing the magic. In the following 2 years, she continued her homeschooling and her life with her mother, brother and sister. She played on the streets with her friends, and although she knew more inside about many things in life than most kids her age, she lost the real magic she was known to have and the nickname given to her, the Sunshine Girl, and it didn't match her image anymore. She also had become afraid to get close to anybody. She was afraid to love anybody or anything, as she was afraid to lose them again. The person that cared for her own health and cared for her heart for everybody now felt that she had to take care of her mother, brother and sister. What was once naturally became now feeling forced upon. She became sloppy, left her clothes laying all over the place, and didn't really take care of her own health. She ate unhealthy foods and took a lot of sweets. Maybe the external sweets were there as a compensation of having lost that inner sweetness. She walked at times around in old and dirty clothes, was often on the edge and not sweet with her words. Was it the pre-maturing teenage years and rebelling against everything and feeling trapped, wanting to break out? Now she was sitting here. Her heart was aching in many ways, having lost her father and struggling with the thoughts that she had wanted to see him before he had passed on. Struggling with the thoughts if it all had just been her love for him and that nothing was real about the stories and the quest for the sacred archives and the map. She was feeling hopeless, not being able to help her own mother with her troubled back. It was unbearable seeing her mother with the feelings of fear and not being able to do many things with her children. Jenai felt overwhelmed with feelings of being not good enough and confronted with fear that she had to play mother for the two younger ones. Without speaking to each other, both of them were playing with the word death in their mind. Her mother thinking that she would die soon, and Jenai thinking also that her mother would die as her condition got worse and worse. In one way she felt completely hopeless, but the information she had received during her life, true or not true, had made the situation a little bit more bearable, as it gave her a different point of view. But even with all this knowledge, she was now looking and praying for other answers. Serena, why have I become afraid of so many things? Have I stepped into the world, that hard and serious world of the adult, which I knew that it existed, but didn't want to enter? Seemingly. And Mom has done the same again. Why are we trying to punish ourselves? Where is the help when you really need it? Serena, who was next to her right ear again, was scratching her head, her eyes were spinning wild and spoke. I thought I was confused, but when I hear you, you are a wreck. Just tell me what you need. Pity? Do you want me to disagree with you? Do you want me to give you advice or get angry with you? Jenai, knowing that she was not in the right program, was not even paying attention, and Serena kept on going. Do you want me to tell you what I would do when I would be in your position? Jenai, returning from deep inside her mind, said, Oh, hush, Serena, who kept on going until Jenai realized that she had not said, Thank you, Serena, after which she stopped. The small rain cloud had passed, and Jenai moved the rocking chair more outward again, and making up her mind that she needed to start believing again. Her magical world always supported her with help. Nothing has changed. That world still exists. I have just left to live in that world, and Mom as well. A picture of Mariah Morrow as her father had described him came in her mind, and she started to think about him and the great story connected to him. The Messengers of Love. It was said that through the entire history of the planet there had always been at least one messenger of love. The messengers of love were the ones bringing balance and inspiration to the mind and hearts of those who were open to receive the message of love. For those who believed and who took the time to understand more about love, it was a path of awakening and learning to see that love was Kandu, the creator and sustainer of all, and that there could be no life without that love. Kandu's love was the essence of everything, and the messengers of love were the ones conveying this message and awareness. Waking up from ignorance, reclaiming power, and living life through the power of love was the key to get through any difficult situation. At the present moment, it was said that one of the messengers of love was Maria Morrow. According to the myths and folktales, the messengers of love had always been living somewhere hidden deep in the green jungle in a place called Crystal Valley. It was said that the mountains surrounding this valley were of pure white crystal formations rising up to the sky. With the sun reflecting in the crystal formations, the light in the valley would be so bright that only those who knew the pure light of love could live there. Morai was a gardener, like all the other messengers before, but a very special gardener, for the only seeds he planted were the seeds of love. The harvest of this love was something special. 365 days of the year, crystals looking like ornaments in every color and every shade and form and type, from diamond to pyramid, round, oval, square and rectangle, were reaped from the land and growing in the crystal trees on the mountain slopes. Each of these crystals, up to the size of a man's fist, contained sacred messages of love. Each ornament, being carefully listened to, was a song of love and gave a message of love on a particular topic, and addressed a specific aspect of life in order to see it from the love point of view. Maria Morrow would bring these crystal ornaments of love to every home, hanging them in the special clear white crystal tree called the Tree of Love. Some ages ago, at the time mankind lost again contact with love and was going through hard times, everybody, rich or poor in every part of the world, had received a clear white crystal tree, a tree of love, a reminder of that eternal love. The gift had been looked upon as a miracle, a gift from Kandu, a gift from heaven, and the messengers brought the crystal ornaments wherever needed. In the beginning, everybody had worked with the gifts, but very fast after the situation had changed, most people took the tree and the message-giving ornament for granted. The trees and the endless gifts of love were not used anymore on a daily basis and lost their power and slowly became invisible, and the messengers of love became another fairy tale. It was said that Morai would be visiting the cities and individuals at their homes, and that sometimes he could appear at many places at the same time on the planet. At other times he would appear in people's dreams, or would make his visits in the night, traveling through the skies in his golden space carriage, with his helper and chauffeur Dionyx, a long dark-skinned handsome young man, pulled by the Hansas, white, peaceful and beautiful-looking swans, carrying with him many crystal ornaments. The mystical and pure swans, being the driving force, were invisible for the human eye, but at certain moments in time when the moon and other planets were at a special constellation, one could see these beautiful souls. Although there were no real crystal trees around anymore, she and her mom, who was also skilled in glass blowing, had made their own crystal tree of love, of glass, and had created many ornaments looking like crystals, and to each of these ornaments a story of love had been given. Stories that they had found in all kinds of books ranging from religion, poetry, philosophy and stories from Fairy Tale Planet, Jimjara, the master storyteller. So, not all the magic had disappeared, she was thinking, and her mom still had the creativity in her because she remembered creating the tree half a year after the death of her father. In addition to the crystal-looking ornaments, Jenai had also hung little pictures of wise people of the past, reminding her on what their contribution had been by assisting mankind to better themselves and the planet. Tired of all the thinking, but feeling a little better, she left the porch and went to her room. Something inside her told her that things would change soon. Answers would come how to help herself, to live life different again, and how to help her mother. Sarina, who instantly was hovering next to her and started talking all kinds of nonsense. Thank you, Sarina, for your company. Sarina, hearing the thank you, flew straight away back in Jenai's pouch. Jenai realized that Sarina had come to an end. She was really stuck in one of the programs, and she realized that the little robo-elf could not be of any help to her anymore. Jenai felt a deep sadness inside as Sarina had been her company for 2 years, but for whatever strange reason, the sadness left her. It was all okay. The magic returns. Before laying down, she looked at the blank wisdom map she had made with her father, and battling with accepting that her father had passed on. What was happening in her life and the world, and struggling with the thoughts of what is real or a dream. She was exhausted from thinking and went in a deep sleep. In the very early morning, she woke up hearing some noise coming from the living room. Putting on her nightrobe and without realizing taking the map, her bracelet and Serena with her, possibly she felt secure having them, she entered the living room. Hearing the bangs, looked at the clock which showed it was 3 o'clock, and saw someone on the floor next to their crystal tree of love. She let out a big sigh, wanted to get scared, but intuitively she knew it was somebody familiar. Was it Moriah Morrow? He was as she had imagined him, a very handsome man with long golden curly hair and a soft and weaving beard, a little smaller than in her imagination and a little bit more rounded. An earth body type, as her father would call this body type. He was dressed in a beautiful blue outfit with designs in the color gold. There was a glow or something which represented a love she was not familiar with. It was around him, and she felt being inside of it. Feeling drawn into this luminous brandy topaz colored eyes that were not of this world, pulled her into another state of being, awake of something but didn't know what. Hello, Jenai. I hope I didn't scare you, he spoke. It's okay. Are you Moriah Morrow, the messenger of love? Yes, he replied. What are you doing here? And why are you on the floor? Spoke Jenai fast and curiously. I came to deliver some ornaments. And before he could answer why he was on the floor, Jenai saw that something was wrong and asked, What has happened to you, Moriah? I think my back gave up on me. I cannot even get up on my knees, and this is very inconvenient as I have to deliver many more crystal ornaments tonight. Jenai rubbed her eyes, and something inside her spoke. Jenai, this is a joke. It is not real what is happening. It is dangerous when you give in to this. Just go back to bed. And then another voice spoke. Don't listen to this man. Maria Morrow, seemingly knowing what was happening, said, "Is the power of doubt and fear speaking?" "Yes," answered Jenai. "It's your choice, Jenai. Either you believe it or me." "But maybe it is just a dream," said Jenai. "When you dream, does not everything feel real?" responded Morai. "Yes," said Jenai. "Maybe everything is a dream," spoke Morai, continued speaking. Let me help you out a little bit, Jenai." The Power Star. There are always voices speaking within us. Here is a personal present from me. He handed her a 4-pointed star the size of a coin. From now on, this is your guide to help you when these voices speak, or when you need direction of how to look at things or how you should act and react. The star is an additional help to having Serena. Just press the star, Jenai, said Morai. How do you know about Serena? Before Morai gave an answer, she realized that he would know a lot, being the messenger, and able to fly around in his magical way. At the moment Jenai pressed on the star, she found herself standing in the middle of a star, as large as a tennis court, floating in mid-air, nothing around her except images of herself. "What does it all mean, Morai?" Then the voice of Morai spoke. "The character on the right side represents the positive side of how we can perceive life. The left side is the so-called negative side, which is not negative, just the opposite of the character on the right. Let me give you an example. When we would look at a glass which is half filled with water, the character on the right side would say the glass is half full, while the other one within you on the left side would say the glass is half empty. The character in front of you, which is also part of you, sees everything from a higher perspective. And this character would respond to the glass by saying, "Thank you for the gift of the glass and the water." The character behind you, which you cannot see, represents the character within us that drags us down and is connected to our real negative passions. Its response to the glass could come from anger, judgment, and dissatisfaction, wanting to throw the glass away or keeping it so no one else could use it. In essence, everybody has this magic power star. It is the power how we can look and act and react at any given moment in life from 4 different angles. It represents the 4 winds of life. Just press the star again, Morai told her. As she did, Jenai was once again facing Morai. Niyama to the rescue. Jenai ignored the voice of doubt and fear and came closer and sat cross-legged on the floor next to Morai and her tree. "I like your tree of love," Jenai said. Morai continued speaking. "I came to bring some more ornaments, although still invisible for your eye, but I know you hear them and use them. I like your self-created ornaments, especially those with the pictures of people you love." One of these pictures was of her grandmother, Niyama, who she had never met, as she had passed on before she was even born. She had heard stories from her parents and other family members about her grandmother, Niyama, who seemingly had been a powerful healer in her time, and what she heard had made her fall in love with this person. In that moment, while closing her eyes, the only person she thought could help at this moment was her grandmother Niyama. Jenai looked at the tree and looked at her grandma's picture and spoke out loud, "Niyama, Niama, come and help Morai. Yes, said Morai. Niama, of course. Why didn't I think about that? You know my grandma? Asked Jenai. Of course, I know this incredible soul. She's a close friend. In her time, she did a lot of good for mankind. At that moment, Niyama's radiant form appeared coming from the picture. Her body was of a pink light with lots of sparkling little stars. Slowly the radiant form disappeared, and there she was standing. She was a woman at age, with white hair, a yellow skin type, looked young and vibrant, and her eyes were blue and sparkling. She was wearing a warm-looking old-fashioned gown, but she moved like a young girl. Hello, Morai and Jenai. Thank you for calling me and giving me the chance to assist. Niyama came up to Jenai and gave her a great loving hug and several kisses. You are beautiful, Grandma, spoke Jenai. Thank you, and you are beautiful too, Jenai. I am ready to help you, Morai and Jenai, but I cannot help you here in this dimension, as I live in a different one. So I invite you to join me in the worlds in between. At that moment, Jenai was thinking that this was no coincidence, and that this had to happen to find out answers for the back pain of Mariah Morrow and of her mother. Niyama, seemingly picking up on her thoughts, spoke. Yes, Jenai, many answers will be revealed to you to assist your mother, and you will also receive information to assist others in the future. I know that you want to finish the work of your father, and the quest for the sacred archives with its many treasures and especially the lost wisdom map. Is it not? Spoke Mariah Morrow. Jenai's eyes spoke of yes, and Niyama said, it will not be easy to gather all this long-forgotten information, but let's see how we can help you, Jenai. You are going on an adventure to gather pieces of this long-forgotten sacred wisdom map. Information about the wisdom scrolls and symbols and many other treasures from the magical University of Life at the Sacred Archives. Assisting anybody to understand more about the universe, the mind, and much more. It is your door to rediscover the basics of life. However, we have another goal, Jenai. We need to get you back on track so you experience the magic again and start taking care of yourself. For how could we take care of others when we don't take care of ourselves first? Grandma, it was so hard, spoke Jenai. I know, because I saw you going through it, and you didn't do too bad at all. Life's experience is about the both sides of life, and the older we get and the more experience we have, we hopefully go easier through the harder times. It is staying connected to Kandu, the Creator, and bringing more play and magic into our lives. And then, although we experience the two sides of life, it all becomes less devastating. Morai took over saying, Jenai, is this really what you want to do? How so? I want to help you. I want to help my mother. I want to learn to know my grandma. I want to have the knowledge of the basics of life. Kalimobanko, the one with the many faces. I have to warn you, however, Jenai, for Kalimobanko, the master of disguise, who also is called the one with the many faces. He has the duty to do everything to confuse you, make you into a disbeliever of magic and harmonious living, scare you, and he will try to bring you into the serious adult world. Kalimobanko possibly doesn't want that any of these treasures are getting back into the planet Earth again. Kalimubanko doesn't like that people become aware and self-empowered, for then he loses his power over them. Just be aware that he will do anything to get you out of the way and trying to trap you in the worlds in between. Jenai paused for a moment, went through all kinds of face expressions of doubt, fear and anger. She wanted to press the power star, but decided not to, and spoke. I have to go. I have no chance. I want to be of help. I'm curious and want to find back the magic I experienced when Dad was still around. I also trust you both, for you will help me as much as you can, for it is in your interest as well. I think we're all three in a similar situation: healing, discovering, and adventure. You are very brave, Jenai, spoke Niyama. Possibly brave, but also scared because I don't know what I'm up against. This Kalimubanko sounds pretty freaky. What is going on here, Jenai? Come here. Jenai's mother had entered the living room. Come here, Jenai, she shouted again. Let's call the police, and you, Jenai, go to your brother and sister and stay there until I call you. Jenai hesitated because she didn't even recognize her own mother with this kind of behavior. She wanted to obey but hesitated to go to her. She had never heard this kind of voice, and she looked into her mother's eyes. She realized it was not her. Then another image of her mother appeared and started screaming and using unpleasant words towards Mariah, Morrow and Niyama. Then a voice inside her spoke. Jenai, just go to these images and hug them. As she went closer and the two images felt what was coming, a third image appeared saying, I know what is going on here and this will not happen, Jenai. You stay here. Your brother and sister are not well and alone. Go and take care of them. Now Jenai was really sure that none of these characters was her mother. She gathered all her courage and went up closer, trying to hug them. But before she could, the characters vanished. That was Kalimubanko, is it not? Looking at Mariah. You did well, Jenai, he spoke. Jenai walked back to the tree and hugged Niyama, who said, That was very brave, Jenai. Where did Kalimubanko came from, Mariah? Asked Jenai. He is part of all of us. He is our mind, right within ourselves. We could say he represents the darker side within us. He is the governor of creation and has the duty to keep everyone slave to the mind, driven by the sense organs. The opposite side is Kandu, which represents the enlightened side, who is also right within us as well. The best way to work with Kalimubanko is to accept him as a part of you. It is a part of ourself we need to embrace, and then he doesn't need to rebel so much to get attention or wants to play the main role in your life. One more thing, Jenai. Leave your empty map behind, as Kalimubanko will want to get it from you while gathering the pieces. Do you know the colors and the headings on the map? Of course, Mariah. I have looked at them so many times and made a beautiful map in my mini computer, which I have a password for. Okay then. But can I take my bracelet and Serena with me? Yes, of course. At that moment, Jenai's tree changed into an original crystal white tree, a tree of love, hanging full with crystal ornaments of incredible beauty that started to shine very brightly. And then the crystal ornaments of love loosened themselves from the tree branches and began to spin around the tree. They went faster and faster and coming further away from its center. Then Jenai recognized that it was a replica of the entire universe with all its galaxies and planets, and they were right inside of it. For a moment Jenai felt being the center of the universe. Not completely there with her mind because so much was happening, she could hear vaguely the voice of Morai saying, "You are the center of the universe, Jenai. Let the adventure begin." Then, in the far distance, Jenai saw a golden space carriage pulled by huge white swans coming towards them at great speed, with an imposing character sitting in front. "That's Direnex, with my golden space carriage and my faithful Hansas," spoke Morai. Direnex flew with the space carriage right underneath Morai, who was still down in the same position, and slowly moved up so that he found himself in the space carriage without having to move. Seemingly it was one of these special moments in time as Jenai was able to see the Hansas. Jenai looked closer at the golden space carriage. It was a magnificent sight. The carriage was oval-shaped, made from white and yellow gold, and all around laid in with huge white crystals, who were reflecting beams of soft color light. The carriage was open top and had a seating capacity for at least 10 people to sit comfortably. The upholstery was of a wonderful velveteen indigo and violet material, looking inviting, cozy, and comfortable. Direnex was wearing a shining gown of the lightest material. The pale yellow was richly embroidered with intricate designs. On his head Direnex wore a fez, complementing his African-style outfit. His complexion was dark brown with beautiful shining brown eyes and an inviting smile showing white teeth. As he turned to face them, Jenai really noticed how tall he stood. Then Niama gently took Jenai by the hand and they both stepped into the space carriage. Direnex stood up from his place and gave welcome hugs and kisses to the two guests. He moved gracefully and was gentle in his mannerism. "We call him Direnex the Baron," spoke Morai. "He's becoming richer every day, for he has discovered the well of love within himself, and from that love he serves without seeking reward or recognition." "Just stop it, Morai," spoke Direnex. Direnex took an oversized pair of sunglasses and spoke. "I better protect myself from the sun, or are you not called the Sunshine Girl?" looking at Jenai, who got a big smile on her face. And then he started to sing a song called "You Are the Sunshine of My Life." Niama spoke, saying, "Now we are in one of the worlds in between. There is so much knowledge in the worlds in between, and also self-healing powers that will help our dear friend Morai, coming from different magical planets and places within the universe. Morai will need more attention than just his back, as he is a bit worn and stressed out from all his rounds." Jenai felt as if a breeze of wind passed through her body. She looked at herself, and to her great surprise, she was wearing a new beautiful and colorful Chinese outfit. She looked at Serena, which she held in her arms, and who had also a new outfit. Before she could ask any question, Morai said, "Direnex is into the magic fashion. Just get used to it when you suddenly wear something else. He is pretty good to tune into the clothes you should wear according to your mood or the environment you are. But sometimes he jokes around. He is a special disciple and constantly working on himself." Direnex had stepped out to checked on the carriage and the Hansas. "Grandma, is Morai going to be completely cured of his condition he is in?" asked Jenai. "We will see what is in store for Morai," answered Niama. "Healing is an adventure, and how much healing will take place we don't know. All of us have different experiences to go through. Pain and discomforts are seemingly some of these experiences, but when we go through these experiences with love and understanding, they will bring us self-healing and wisdom. This can be the self-healing of a particular ailment, or we learn how to better deal with a situation, even though this discomfort may not even change at all, or just a little. When we approach healing as a self-healing adventure, we definitely gather information and practical tools to help ourselves and or others in need. Jenai just realizing that she was leaving her family behind. What about mom and the two kids? Don't you worry about them. You will be back before you miss them. Jenai was puzzled and wanted to ask more, but Niyama continued saying, but for now, Jenai, I just want you to sit back and enjoy the ride. Let's go. Before the golden space carriage took off, Dionyx stood up, facing the guest and spoke, all passengers aboard? Fasten your seatbelt, when you can find any. Your parachute, when it is not used by the last visitor, you should find underneath your seat. In case of an emergency, the exits are, and Dionyx pointing out with his arms and turned around in all directions. Jenai giggled softly as Dionyx sat down again. He shouted at the Hansas, get a move on, dear reindeer. Everybody looked at each other, realizing that Dionyx had dressed up Morai as Santa Claus, and Niyama and Jenai were wearing Christmas celebration outfits, and the swans looked like reindeer. Then they took off in a high speed into the deep space of the universe, and at that moment Jenai couldn't see the Hansas anymore. That's exactly how I was feeling, and it feels as if Morai is Santa. Niyama said, that is the closest association you probably have, and it feels like a celebration. The Hansas, however, when you look carefully, are not attached to the sleigh, or better said, golden space carriage. How is that possible? They are representing a pure energy force that actually is all around the carriage, but also the engine and the fuel, and this fuel is infinite. It is that everlasting energy within everything. At times you will see that the Hansas are the decision maker, and other times Dionyx. He can as well drive this unique space carriage manual, but it all depends on the situation. Robobirds on the attack. They were not even gone for seconds when they saw a black cloud coming towards them. However, looking closer, it was not a cloud, but a huge flock of strange-looking giant birds, half animal and half robot. Their wingspan was at least 30 feet, covered with red feathers, and their bodies were protected with leather harnesses. One of their eyes seemingly to be normal, but the other the eye of a robot. On their heads they were wearing strange metallic-looking helmets. They came from everywhere, making a terrible, frightening noise, and with their mechanic claws they were trying to grab Jenai. Niyama was fast and pulling Jenai back in her seat when one of the strange-looking creatures got hold of her. Dionyx made several spins and knocked down some of the robobirds. There were so many, and claws came from everywhere. Niyama created the protection shield with her mind around the two of them. Morai was seemingly safe as the robobirds got knocked down one by one, coming close to him, as by some magical shield around him. Dionyx decided to increase the speed, but the speed button was jammed. As the birds tried to grab him, he was banging on the button, and then suddenly it worked. The speed increased and knocked some birds off the ship, but they were fast to increase their speed as well. Then he activated the electric shock defense mechanism of the Golden Space Carriage, and birds getting too close received a shock and were paralyzed for some moments. More and more robobirds showed up, circling around, creating the image of a twister. Dionys had to be fast and took a gap between all the birds, increased the speed, and got out of the cloud of the attacking birds. "That was close, Jenai," commented Dionys, as they had entered another dimension in the universe, which was calm and peaceful. "Kalimobongo doesn't want to give you a break," said Morai. "Take a deep breath and let it all go." Jenai was still shaking. The realm of the rainbows. After some time they flew over a space road made in the 7 colors of the rainbow, and entered a realm looking like enormous fields with rainbows everywhere, small and big, high above and at eye level as far as the eye could see. Here is where the real journey begins, Jenai, and these rainbows are gates to the inner dimensions of the universe. Gates, Niyama? What do you mean with that? Dionys know where we are going first, and when we fly underneath one of these rainbows, we enter other dimensions. They are like doors. There are doors everywhere, leading us to different experiences. Just think about entering the rooms in your house, which you enter through a door. Each room has something different to offer. Inside our body and mind, we also have endless doors, and there are many worlds to be discovered. They kept on flying for a while, and then they flew underneath one of these beautiful rainbows, and the speed they went was even faster than when they had taken off when Dionys had escaped from the robobirds. It felt like going through endless caves and tunnels, and Jenai had to close her eyes and drifted into another world. Niama was holding Jenai with her magic healing hands. Jenai made a deep sigh and fell asleep.